Yes, we have both pictures pinned for the recording, so we should be good to go that way. I'm going to make my way to the kitchen, and
all right,
we'll go ahead and mute. And like I said, we'll have you introduce yourself and tell us the thing.
All right. Okay, so as I was mentioning earlier, Bargamel's was my first camping event. It was my second event ever. I had gone to one feast before that, and just because I am who I am, I volunteered to cook, to help in the kitchen for that first Bargamel's. And I think the second one that I attended, I was running the kitchen maybe, or heavily assisting in the kitchen. And 4 years in, I was running the event. So Bargamel's is an event that's super close to my heart. I love the way that it pulls the entire community, not just Terra Pomaria, but our neighbors around the area. Everybody comes to that event. And it's usually one of the very first events of the whole season. Everybody gets to see people that you haven't seen in a while. And this year, even though it's just virtual, none of us have seen each other in a really long time. And it's even cooler. So when Her Excellency asked me if I'd be willing to do a cooking demo or something, that, well, soup would be a perfect thing to do for it, because I have made probably at least 100 gallons of soup for Bargamel's over the years. And I was kind of struggling with, should we do a period soup or what kind of soup? So I asked several people that I associate with Bargamel's, what kind of soup do you think I should make? And with 2 exceptions, I got the mushroom soup. The other 2 people, Kai and Gerald, really wanted me to do either the venison or the rabbit. But because those ingredients are so much harder for other people to access, I thought the mushroom soup would be something that everybody could easily get the ingredients and make along. So without further ado, we'll just get started on this. So this mushroom soup is not a period recipe at all, but I think I have made this for Bargamel's at least a dozen different years, because it's really good and people like it. Gosh, I kind of wish.
All the ingredients are period. It's just there's nothing that's nothing quite like it.
They are sort of all. Sigmund was saying that all the ingredients are kind of period, and they sort of are. Although you're not ever going to find soy sauce in medieval Europe. Everything else but the soy sauce you probably could easily find in medieval Europe. But at any rate, so for this recipe, it's actually pretty simple and pretty quick. Does not take terribly long. And we start by melting our butter. We start by turning on the stove, if we can. All right, that burner's not going on. I'll turn this.
I'm gonna go get the lighter.
This started just, okay. So we're having some technical difficulties on the stove, which turned right on early. Sorry about that little interruption. All right, so we're gonna melt the 2 tablespoons of butter first. All right. And into that melted butter, you're going to put your 2 cups of chopped onions. All right. You just want to cook them in here for about 5 minutes just to start. They'll start getting a little bit soft. So today I'm only going to be using just the right here, the creminis and the just the regular white mushrooms from the grocery store. More often than not, at Bargamels, I'm using I'm using a bunch of wild mushrooms that we pick up on Mount Hood. Or even better is when we can go right out to the Bargamels site and pick the mushrooms off of the site, which we've done many years. The morels that grow out there are terrific. It's sad to see us not being able to go pick this year. I missed them last year too. But once those onions have cooked for about 5 minutes, we're almost there. I should have brought a clock out here so I could keep track of the time a little bit better. Let's see. I see Laura's cooking with us. Melanie, are you cooking with us too?
Her Excellency is also cooking with you.
Perfect, perfect. Okay. So
and, you know, I could probably arrange with the site manager for Talawali to go hunt morels.
If you had an inside there, I would be real happy about that.
This golf course is open, so if you find any mushrooms along the disc golf course.
Oh, really? Oh, I
Yeah.
hadn't even thought about wandering around their disc golf course. Thank you. That's a great idea. Okay, so my onions have been cooking for close to 5 minutes. They're starting to look a little bit translucent and soft. And so now I'm just going to dump in my 1 pound of mushrooms. On the website before, ahead of time, or on Facebook, I let people know on there that you don't want big chunks of the mushrooms. I like slicing them pretty thin. When I'm using the wild mushrooms, I'll even actually chop them up in smaller pieces sometimes, because some of the mushrooms I use are enormous mushrooms. From we tend to use a lot of the boletes and chanterelles, whatever we can find up on the mountain. We have a cute little visitor. There's a cute little goldfinch that looks like just starting to get its yellow, sitting here watching and eating. This is why I like cooking outside. It's so cute.
Looks yummy.
I'm sorry, I get very distracted by the little birds in my backyard. All right.
How are things looking?
Okay. So we're just going to saute these for about another 5 minutes. It's already starting to smell really good. Actually, just the chopped ingredients were smelling so good while I was sitting here before we started cooking that I was starting to get hungry then. All right. Okay. These are definitely starting to cook down really nice. One of the really nice things about this soup is that it's actually pretty darn quick. It's maybe 40 minutes from start to finish, even including the prep time. The cooking time is maybe about 20, 25 minutes. It's kind of nice. All right. All right. Might be because the camp stove has such a higher heat than the house stove, but mine look like they're ready. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and go
Could you
on.
hold a spoonful of that up just so that people can kind of see the texture and
Yep.
how things look?
Okay, that's a great idea.
So the
okay.
so the onions are clarified and the mushrooms are starting to sort of reduce a little bit.
Yep, exactly. All right, so now we're ready for the next step, which is to add the dill, the paprika, the soy sauce, and the broth. So I have my broth made ahead of time here. I've got my 2 teaspoons of dill, a tablespoon of paprika. It's 2 tablespoons of, or a tablespoon, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. And just stir that in a little bit. Mix through. And then 2 cups of broth. You can use chicken broth or vegetable broth, one of the two. I use veggie broth because then it is a completely vegetarian soup. That's what I've always done for the event, because it's just nice to have dietary options for people. In the SCA, we have an amazing range of dietary needs, you know, lots of different allergies and dietary choices that people make. And I like to always make sure that I'm providing something that everybody can eat. So I know I was asked ahead of time, this is a cream soup, so it does have, it calls for milk and sour cream, but there's vegan sour creams available, and there are a lot of milk alternatives available. For this particular one, just because of the flavor, I think that probably soy milk or almond milk would be better than most of the other ones, just flavor wise. What do you think?
I think you're right. I think you could get away with an oat milk, like a plain oat milk, or
Yeah, an oat one might work
an
too.
extra creamy oat milk.
Yeah,
you could
that's
do.
a good point.
And if you needed to replace like your sour cream, you could use something like
Greek yogurt is a great
yeah.
replacement.
But if you wanted to go vegan, you could use like the soft tofu.
Yeah, okay, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
I do particularly like the rice milk, but it does have a sweetness to it. So
yeah,
that's personally why I personally would avoid that, because the other ones don't have that sweetness to it. Coconut milk I wouldn't use either because it's sweeter than I prefer.
The oat
So
milk, you can get along.
what else have we added so far? Like, have we added the milk yet, or just the broth?
We have not yet. We've only added the broth. Right now at this point, we just have
Could you give us a ladle of that nice and close just to kind of see what it looks like?
the onions, the mushrooms, the dill, paprika, and the broth. That's all, and the soy sauce. That's all we've added so far. And now we're going to just let this kind of simmer for about 10 minutes. And that softens the vegetables even further in there. So
I'll tell you one story. It's the first time we ever found morels at Bargamel's, and there's this tiny little plate that we had found. Rosemary or Vari had.
Kate was the one who
Kate
showed me where they were originally down by the river, and I went down and found that little teeny plate.
Yep. She found
Baroness Kate.
Yep, and Baroness Kate. What do we have? Probably enough for maybe
7 or 8.
7 or 8 7 or 8 tablespoons of yeah. I think everybody got just a little taste.
Only at the head table. We sauteed them up with a little bit of butter and garlic, and only the head table got them for dinner that night. Yeah. But once they were there, they were on the agenda for every Bargamel's out at Camp Talali after that. For sure.
So things are starting to simmer in the pot.
I think I was there for that. I think she came in and said, "Are these what I think they are?" And we're like, yeah, they are."
That was also one of my favorite parts with Bargamel's, because morel hunting is something that my family has done for years.
Oh, and, awesome.
Yeah, so that I had a sense of belonging because it was something that I was able to do.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
It looks
Yeah.
Captain Randy says that his favorite Vari moment was in the kitchen at a Bargamel's, teaching myself and Rook a dance we had to perform at court for our sergeant requirement.
Fun. Gosh, that was a long time ago when we had our dance troupe that used to dance all the time. That was fun. Thank you, Randy. That's a good memory.
I want to start that up again if we can.
We're down.
We used to meet at the Unitarian Church out on Center in Corden every other week, once a month. Maybe it was just once a month, but it was a lot of fun.
We used to use that for an event site.
Oh yeah, it's a nice building. It's got plenty of kitchens.
Oh, fun fact about the Unitarian Universalist Church, it's where Rosemary received her
Vari,
pelican.
yes.
Vari received her pelican.
Yeah, I remember.
Did you drag me out of the kitchen?
No. We were both in the kitchen. Like,
Oh, that's right.
like,
You were
they
in there.
started falling behind, and we
were
both
making
went
pie
in and
crusts.
we said we're not going to do anything at this event. We'll leave
Yep,
this for
yep.
other people. And
Yep.
they're like, we're falling behind. And so you and I were up to our elbows in the
Pie
kitchen.
crusts.
And then was it Skaggy?
Yes.
Yep.
He called us out to court, me for my AOA and you for your pelican. And we're both like, no, this is a horrible time. Don't do it.
Flour all over me. But maybe it was a perfect time because we were both doing what we love to do. So, all right. I am absolutely certain that this has not been a full 15 minutes here, but this totally looks ready. So the next part of this, can you get that in there really good? These are definitely cooked down really beautifully. The
Okay, so
mushrooms are all nice and
How can you tell that it's
Mm.
ready? For those
Smells
who-
great.
oh, this smells so good.
The paprika is really kind of starting to come out in the smell. It smells great.
Sorry, I don't know if you heard the question. How can you tell when it's cooked down enough?
Basically what you're looking for is for the mushrooms to be really, really nice and tender and soft.
Okay.
So that's really what you're looking for. Okay. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. And mine are, but again, I'm using my camp stove outside and it has a much larger and probably hotter burner than my kitchen stove does. So it might take a little bit longer for others. But even if your mushrooms aren't quite all the way ready, you can still follow me with the next step because here now I have my milk and 3 tablespoons of flour. And I'm going to put the flour into the milk and I didn't bring a whisk out with me, so I'm just going to use a fork to mix it up because we're going to thicken the soup here in just a minute. All right. That looks mostly mixed in. All righty. Then you're just going to put the milk and the flour mixture, pour it right into the rest of the soup and go ahead and stir that in. And this is when it starts almost looking like it's finished product here. All righty. Just give it a few stirs here. And now we're ready to let it simmer for another maybe 5 minutes or so. So make sure your heat is up high, bring it up to a simmer. Just a gentle little bubble. Okay. Then the last things that we're going to add is just our salt and pepper, lemon juice, parsley, and the sour cream. And once this is simmered for another 5-ish minutes, we're going to add those things in there. I'm going to turn this down just a little. It's also clearly been way too long since I used my camp stove. I'm just not used to it.
Yeah, the burners are really large on this. I
It's
feel like
great.
it's really.
Well, I usually am cooking for, 15, 20 people when I'm
Oh, yeah,
using
maybe
this
that's
stove,
it.
so that's fine.
All right, Rosemary, get
All
us a nice ladle of that. Let's take a look.
All right.
All this steam.
Okay. So now it's gotten nice and thick. I'm going to let it continue thickening just for a couple of more minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and cut my lemon and juice it. So half a lemon is going to be plenty because it only needs a couple teaspoons of the lemon juice. Okay. I'm also not accustomed to making such small batches of this. It's usually big pots.
Adele says that Worcestershire sauce would have been a good alternative to soy sauce for her persona, which sounds
Oh, that's a great idea, Adele.
later period.
And Adele, if you're cooking this, you're going to need to at least double this recipe, if not triple it for your clan, okay?
So you want to share any of your favorite Bargamels memories with us?
Well, I was actually just thinking about Finna's granddaughter, Brianna, who used to tell me for years, from the time she was little, she hated mushrooms. She hated mushrooms. Well, now she's about this big. She hated mushrooms. She hated mushrooms. And I finally talked her into having some of this mushroom soup. And guess what? She doesn't hate mushrooms anymore. This is one of the soups she's actually asked for a couple of times, which is awesome. But gosh, there are so many Bargamel stories that I really love. The very first one I went to very much helped me learn what the SCA, why it's important to me. It's my first camping event. And even though I'd had lots and lots of experience at summer camps in my life, I'd never been to Silver Falls or Camp Silver Creek out there. And their cabins are very, very cold. I wasn't accustomed to that kind of chilliness. And so we weren't particularly well prepared for that. And Baroness Elspeth and I had our combined 5 children at that event. Our first night, that Friday night, was absolutely miserable because we were so cold and so unprepared. So early the next morning, we were back down in the main big, huge lodge by the fireplace trying to get everybody warmed up. And Arthur from Adiantum, who I haven't not seen in the SCA for many, many years now, came over and started chatting with us and asked us if we were having fun and such. And we said, well, mostly, but last night was pretty miserable. I don't know if we're going to be able to stay with the kids tonight because it was so cold. Well, he invited us to come and move to the cabin that he and a couple of friends were in. They were actually in one of the big lodges with the fireplace. And that act of hospitality and friendliness kept us there for the weekend. We had so much fun. The kids had so much more fun because of that. They had a warm place to sleep that night. And for me, that has kind of set my purpose in the SCA, is to try and make people feel welcome And the whole idea of hospitality became so much more important to me in the SCA because of my experience at that event. And wherever Arthur is out there in the world, I hope he knows how much we appreciated what he did for us that weekend. It was pretty cool. And then there's so many more. I mean, because we had Camp Silver Creek for our event site for many, many years. And that's where we had the pirates invaded us. And that's when, oh goodness, do you remember the year we were haunted?
Yes.
Oh, word. It was a sad, star-crossed lovers who just couldn't leave this plane until they found out what had happened to each other, and haunted the event the whole weekend until we figured out how to help settle their souls.
Is there also the one with the Crimson Marquee?
No, it was something else. But we did have one year where it was horrible. Baron Cesare and Baroness Astrid's eldest daughter was taken by the Fae and replaced by a changeling. It took all weekend to find her and get her back. But
Bargamills has always had. Oh yeah, Randy says there were zombies one year.
Oh yes, the zombies I think were part of the undead army that were trying to help protect poor ghost of poor Sir Raphael as he was trying to make his way back to poor Kyrie. All right, I think this is ready to go here for my last ingredients. All right, so now my last things are going to be my lemon juice, my salt, and my pepper. Turn this way down here. Salt and pepper to taste, of course. Then before I start chopping my parsley, I'm actually going to dump in my sour cream and let it just start melting in there. And then I'll stir it all together once I add the chopped parsley. And then I did not chop my parsley ahead of time because I picked it right before I got online with you guys. So I'm just going to chop a bunch into the pot. Only about 1/4 cup is what it recommends.
I was giving Clovis a bad time because he had purchased a bunch of parsley for me. Because I had planted parsley in my little pseudo herb garden, and it has volunteered in front of the herb garden. So I have volunteer parsley and volunteer chives.
Nice. So you just replant them where you want them, and they're not volunteers anymore. They've been conscripted.
Exactly. And it goes along with the ambiance of our general landscaping. So
all right, so here we go. We have some finished mushroom soup here. All right, now you guys will be able to see. I'm going to dish some of this up. I'm just going to slide it out of the way here. Grab one of the bowls. All righty.
Always to your taste.
Yep. However much salt and pepper tastes good to you. Start with a little and add to your own taste. So there we go.
Hold on.
Okay.
What is it they say? Always add less salt than you think, and always add more pepper than you think.
I always add less salt than I think, even when I'm trying to add enough. Because I'm a salt freak. I eat way too much, and I'm absolutely sure of that. But all right.
It's easier to add more salt than
to take it out. That's very, very true. I remember making some chocolate shortbread with salted caramel in it one time for an event. And I remember a couple of kids that took some thinking it's chocolate and off and taking bites of it. They went, this chocolate has salt in it. You did something wrong. It was funny. I thought it was really good. All right. So now we are ready, at least over here, we're ready for the important part of actually enjoying this delicious and wonderful soup. I'm gonna move this out of the way.
And Her Excellency's batch is, the coloration's different because we used rice milk. We used rice
Well,
milk.
we used rice milk. I also used, I recently splurged and bought myself fancy pants paprika. And so
Oh,
ours is it's smoky paprika. So we'll see.
Oh, okay. And I used a sweet paprika.
Okay.
And that can definitely make the difference on that for sure.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And now
Yeah.
I have the basis of how to do this, so I can go
Oh, yeah.
It's probably close. It's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
I think that is important, is experimenting while you're cooking, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you know, you're going to make mistakes, and mistakes are how we learn new things.
His Excellency says that, but I'm really bad at that when it comes to cooking.
Well, he has the kind of cooking background that I do, though. So we are a little bit braver because we've done so much of it over the years.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the familiarity with what works to be able to then rip off of
Yes.
that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you don't learn that stuff without the experience and without screwing it up for a while.
And, you know, how do you know what spices to add if you haven't tried it out in something else, you know?
Right, right. And I love that lots of times I can taste something that I like and figure out what the spices are in it because I have enough experience with that. And the only way you get that is by trying. And good grief, Mindy, excuse me, Your Excellency, there's been more than one thing that's actually gotten dumped down the drain. So
Yes, that is true. It's like, I cannot feed that to anybody else.
exactly. You know, I won't even feed that to poor Duke. Huh, Duke?
I don't know. Yeah, most of the time when we screw up badly enough that the dogs are like, "Excuse me, no."
Right? Exactly.
Our dogs are pretty
so
picky.
good.
They are spoiled.
They are.
Mm.
Okay.
Gosh, and this is the time when I even more wish you guys were all right here. We were all together because this is delicious. I wish you could enjoy it with us.
You know, we should make plans for 2022 and onto your West floor. I'll bring my big kitchen tent and it'll be a lot of fun.
Hmm.
I'm to the parsley part.
Cool. You're almost done. Ready to eat.
I know I'm kind of concerned about feeding it to His Excellency on camera though, because you know he's
He's got his nice garb on.